The stagecoach rattled to a stop in Apache Junction, Arizona Territory, on a sweltering August afternoon in 1883, and Katherine Grace stepped down into the dust with nothing but a worn leather Bible clutched against her chest, her heart pounding so hard she thought the entire town might hear it. She had expected someone to meet her, perhaps a kind face or at least a sign with her name, but the dirt road stretched empty in both directions, flanked by weathered wooden buildings that looked like they might collapse if the wind blew too hard. The driver tossed her single carpetbag down from the top of the coach, tipped his hat without a word, and the horses lurched forward before she could ask where she might find the man she was supposed to marry. Katherine stood there in the blazing sun, her dark traveling dress already soaked through with perspiration, and wondered if she had made the biggest mistake of her 22 years. 3 months ago, she had been living in Boston, working as a seamstress in her aunt's shop, reading the advertisement that would change everything. A rancher in the Arizona Territory seeking a Christian wife, someone hardworking and honest, willing to build a life in the rugged frontier. The letters had come weekly after that, written in a surprisingly elegant hand, speaking of faith and hope, and the kind of partnership that could weather any storm. But Thomas Wainwright had stopped writing 5 weeks ago, and Katherine had already sold everything she owned to pay for the journey west. She picked up her carpetbag and started walking toward what looked like a general store, her boots kicking up little clouds of dust with each step. The Bible pressed against her ribs, the only thing of real value she had left, the only inheritance from the mother she had lost when she was barely old enough to remember her face. Inside its pages were pressed flowers and handwritten notes, verses underlined in fading ink, a record of all the prayers that had sustained her through years of loneliness and want. The general store smelled like coffee and leather, and something sweet she could not quite identify. An older woman behind the counter looked up, her weathered face breaking into a cautious smile. "Help you, miss?" "I am looking for Thomas Wainwright," Katherine said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I was told he had a ranch near here." The woman's expression changed, sympathy flooding her eyes in a way that made Katherine's stomach drop. "Oh, honey, you must be the bride he sent for. I am afraid I have some hard news. Thomas passed on about 6 weeks back. Snake bite. He was gone before anyone could get him to a doctor." The world tilted slightly and Katherine gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. "I see. Thank you for telling me. You got family back east, enough for a ticket home." Katherine shook her head. The money she had spent to come here represented everything, every saved penny, every small possession sold off piece by piece. "No, I will find work here, I suppose." The woman looked doubtful. "Work is hard to come by in a town this size, especially for a woman alone. Most families do their own sewing, and we already got a school teacher. You might try the saloon, but I do not think that is what you are hoping for." Katherine felt heat rise to her cheeks. "No, that would not suit me at all." She thanked the woman and walked back out into the brutal afternoon sun, fighting the urge to sit down in the middle of the street and cry. Instead, she found a narrow strip of shade beside the building and sank down onto her carpetbag, still clutching the Bible like an anchor in a storm. She had nowhere to go, no money for lodging, and night would fall eventually. The reality of her situation pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. "You look like you could use some water." Katherine looked up to find a man standing a few feet away, tall and lean with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of sage. He held out a canteen, his expression more curious than threatening, and she realized she was desperately thirsty. "Thank you," she managed, accepting the canteen and taking a careful sip. The water was warm but clean, and she forced herself not to gulp it down like she wanted to. "Vincent Vale," he said, crouching down so he was not looming over her. "I run cattle up in the hills north of town. Saw you get off the stage looking like the world had just ended." "It might have," Katherine admitted, handing back the canteen. "I came here to marry Thomas Wainwright. I just learned he died 6 weeks ago." Vincent let out a low whistle. "That is rough luck. Thomas was a good man. His place went to his brother back in Kansas, but the brother already sold it to a mining company." "You really did not know?" The letters stopped coming, but I thought perhaps he was simply busy with the ranch work. "I had already committed to coming, already sold everything I owned to afford the journey." She held up the Bible. "This is all I have left, really. Everything else is just clothing and a few necessities." Vincent studied her for a long moment, and Katherine felt herself being assessed in a way that should have made her uncomfortable, but somehow did not. There was no leer in his gaze, no suggestion of impropriety, just a careful consideration like he was trying to solve a complicated problem. "Can you cook?" he asked finally. "Yes, well enough. I can sew better and I know how to manage a household. I worked for my aunt for years, and before that I helped raise my younger siblings after our mother died." "Can you handle living somewhere isolated?" "My ranch is 2 hours from town on a good day, farther when the weather turns. I get into Apache Junction maybe once a month for supplies. It is just me and 2 hands who bunk in the smaller cabin. I have been doing my own cooking and mending for 3 years, and I am terrible at both." Katherine's heart began to beat faster, hope flickering to life despite her better judgment. "Are you offering me employment?" "I am offering you a fair wage, room and board, and honest work. Nothing improper. You would have your own space, and my men are good people who would not bother you. I could use the help, and you need a place to land. Seems like it might work out for both of us." He paused, then added, "I should mention I am looking for a wife eventually, someone who could be a true partner in building something lasting out here. But I would never pressure you into anything you did not want. If you just want the work, that would be fine too." It was possibly the strangest job offer Katherine had ever received, and she knew she should be cautious, should demand references and time to think it over. But the sun was dropping toward the horizon, and she had nowhere to sleep tonight, and something in Vincent Vale's direct gaze made her think he was exactly what he appeared to be. An honest man offering an honest deal. "All right," she said, getting to her feet and brushing dust from her skirt. "I accept your offer of employment, and I appreciate your honesty about the rest." Vincent stood as well, a slow smile crossing his face that transformed him from merely handsome to something that made Katherine's breath catch slightly. "Best decision either of us has made in a while, I think. Let me get my wagon loaded with supplies and we will head out before dark. You can meet Cookie and Jack, my 2 hands. They will be surprised, but pleased. Cookie especially has been complaining about my biscuits for months. Are they truly that bad? Let me put it this way. I once saw a coyote sniff one and walk away." Katherine laughed, surprising herself, and followed Vincent toward the general store. The woman behind the counter raised her eyebrows when they walked in together, but Vincent just gave her a cheerful nod and started gathering supplies. Flour, coffee, dried beans, salt pork, sugar, and various other staples piled up on the counter while Katherine watched, mentally calculating how much food it took to keep 3 working men fed. "You will need some things too," Vincent said, turning to her. "Practical clothes, boots that can handle rough terrain, whatever else you need. Consider it an advance on your wages." "I cannot accept that. I have not worked a single day yet." "You will work plenty, believe me, and you cannot cook or clean in a fancy dress like that. You will roast in the summer heat, and it will be destroyed in a week. This is practical, not charity." Katherine wanted to argue further, but she knew he was right. The woman behind the counter, who introduced herself as Mrs. Patterson, helped Katherine select two simple cotton dresses in sturdy fabric, a split riding skirt, a wide-brimmed hat, and a pair of good leather boots. By the time everything was purchased and loaded into Vincent's wagon, the sun was beginning its final descent, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson. The ride to the ranch was quiet at first, both of them adjusting to this sudden arrangement. The wagon bounced over rough terrain, following a trail that seemed to exist more in Vincent's mind than in any actual markings on the ground. The landscape was harsh but beautiful in its own way, all sharp angles and surprising colors, dotted with saguaro cacti standing like sentinels against the darkening sky. "Tell me about Boston," Vincent said eventually. "I have never been further east than Missouri." So Katherine told him about the crowded streets and brick buildings, the harbor smell of salt and fish, the way fog rolled in during autumn mornings. She told him about her aunt's shop and the endless parade of wealthy women who wanted their dresses altered, about her younger brother who had gone to sea 2 years ago and her sister who had married a clerk and moved to Philadelphia. She told him about feeling like she was slowly disappearing into a life of gray sameness, every day exactly like the one before, until the advertisement had arrived like a message from God Himself, offering her a chance at something different, something that mattered. "And now here you are, heading to a ranch in the middle of nowhere with a stranger," Vincent said, but his tone was gentle, not mocking. "That took real courage, Katherine, making the journey out here and accepting my offer today. A lot of people would have just given up." "I do not think I know how to give up," Katherine admitted. "My mother died when I was 12, and my father followed her 2 years later, just seemed to lose the will to keep going. I had to figure out how to take care of my siblings, how to convince my aunt to take us in, how to work and save and plan. Giving up was never an option." "Your mother's Bible?" Vincent asked, nodding at the book she still held. "Yes. She read from it every night, no matter how tired she was from working. She used to say that faith was not about having an easy life, it was about having the strength to face a hard one. I have tried to remember that." Katherine ran her hand over the worn leather cover. "It is the only thing I have of hers. Everything else was sold when my father died." "My father gave me a watch when I left home at 18, Vincent said. "Told me it was to remind me that time was the only thing we really had, so I had better spend it wisely. I lost it in a poker game 2 months later when I was drunk and stupid. I think about that watch sometimes, wonder if I ever did learn to spend my time wisely." "Did you?" Vincent glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "I think I am trying to. I saved for 5 years to buy my ranch, worked every job I could find, some of them pretty rough. I have built something real out here, something that could last. But it has been lonely, I will not lie about that. Cookie and Jack are good men, but it is not the same as having a real partner, someone who shares your vision for what life could be." They fell silent again as the wagon climbed into higher terrain, the air cooling slightly as the last light faded from the sky. Stars began to emerge, so many more than Katherine had ever seen in Boston, scattered across the darkness like diamonds on black velvet. She had read about western skies in books, but nothing had prepared her for this vast display, the sense of being small beneath something immense and eternal. "Almost there," Vincent said, and Katherine could hear the warmth in his voice, the pride of a man returning home. "Just over this ridge." The ranch appeared as a collection of dark shapes against the starlit landscape, resolved into structures as they drew closer. A main house built of adobe and wood, solid and well-maintained. A barn and corral, a smaller cabin set off to the side, a windmill turning slowly in the night breeze. It was not grand, but it had a sense of permanence, of being exactly where it belonged in this harsh land. "Cookie, Jack, come give me a hand with these supplies," Vincent called as he pulled the wagon to a stop. "And I brought us some help." Two men emerged from the smaller cabin, one older with a grizzled beard and bowlegs, the other younger and whipcord thin. Both stopped short when they saw Katherine. "Boss, did you buy out the whole general store, or did you bring home a wife?" the older man asked. "Neither exactly. This is Katherine Grace. She came to marry Thomas Wainwright, but Thomas passed before she arrived. She is going to be cooking and keeping house for us, and anyone who makes her uncomfortable will answer to me. Katherine, this is Cookie and Jack." Cookie swept off his hat, revealing a mostly bald head. "Madam, it is a genuine pleasure. I apologize for my rough tongue. We are not used to ladies out here." Jack just nodded, too shy to speak, but his expression was friendly enough. "Help me unload these supplies and then let Miss Katherine get settled in." "She has had a long day," Vincent said, and the three men made quick work of carrying everything into the house. The main house was simple but clean, with a large room that served as kitchen and living space, two smaller rooms off to the sides, and a loft accessible by a ladder. Vincent showed Katherine to one of the side rooms, which contained a bed, a dresser, and a washstand. It was spare, but it was more than she had expected. "This was supposed to be for guests, but I have never had any," Vincent admitted. "There is a bolt on the inside of the door." "I want you to feel safe here, Katherine. That is important to me." "Thank you," Katherine said, meaning it, "for everything. You took a chance on a stranger today." "So did you," Vincent pointed out. "I will let you rest. We usually eat breakfast at dawn, but take tomorrow to get your bearings. The day after, we will put you to work." He smiled. "And trust me, after you taste Cookie's biscuits, you will understand why I was desperate." After he left, Katherine sank down on the bed and finally allowed herself to cry. The tears came quietly, a release of fear and exhaustion and overwhelming relief. She had been so frightened standing in that dusty street, so certain that she had made a terrible mistake that would cost her everything. Instead, she had found this unlikely refuge, this strange opportunity with a man who seemed too good to be true. She opened her mother's Bible, letting it fall naturally to the pages most worn by reading. Proverbs, her mother's favorite book. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." Her mother had underlined those verses in fading ink, and Katherine traced the words with her finger, wondering if her path had truly been directed here, to this remote ranch with this quiet cowboy who had offered her hope when she had none left. Eventually, she changed into her nightgown, used the water in the pitcher to wash away the day's dust, and climbed under the clean quilts on the bed. Through the small window, she could see those incredible stars, and she fell asleep watching them slowly wheel across the sky, feeling safer than she had in months. Morning came with the sound of roosters and men's voices, and Katherine woke disoriented until memory flooded back. She dressed quickly in one of her old dresses, saving the new practical clothes for actual work, and ventured out into the main room. Vincent was already gone, but Cookie was attempting to make coffee at the big iron stove. "Morning, miss," he said. "Boss said you should rest today, but if you are inclined to make some breakfast, I would not object. My cooking is fit for men who have lost their sense of taste, but it is not fit for company." Katherine smiled and tied on an apron she found hanging by the stove. "Let me see what we are working with." What followed was a pleasant morning of organizing the kitchen, which was well stocked but chaotic, and preparing a proper breakfast of eggs, bacon, biscuits, and gravy. When the men came in from their morning chores, the smell of fresh coffee and hot food drew exclamations of delight that made Katherine laugh. "Madam, if you cook like this every day, I might propose marriage myself," Cookie said, then immediately looked mortified. "Begging your pardon, that was forward of me." "It is all right," Katherine assured him. "I am just glad you enjoy it." Vincent caught her eye across the table and smiled, a warm, genuine expression that made something flutter in Katherine's chest. She looked away quickly, reminding herself that she had just met this man yesterday, that gratitude and attraction were two different things, and that she needed to be careful about confusing them. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Katherine rose before dawn to prepare breakfast, then spent her mornings cleaning and organizing the house, which had been neglected by men who spent most of their time outdoors. She cooked substantial midday meals and hearty suppers, learning what the men preferred and how much food it took to fuel their physically demanding work. In her spare time, she mended their clothes, amazed at how many things had been torn and clumsily repaired with huge stitches that looked like they would give way any moment. She saw Vincent throughout the day, but usually only in passing as he worked the ranch. He was up before dawn checking on cattle, riding fence lines, breaking horses, doing the endless tasks that kept the operation running. But he always made time to talk with her, asking about her day, sharing stories about the ranch and the land, treating her like a valued partner rather than just hired help. "How are you settling in?" he asked one evening after supper, finding her on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of orange and purple. "Better than I expected," Katherine admitted. "It is beautiful here in a way I did not anticipate. Harsh, but beautiful." "Like a lot of things worth having," Vincent said, leaning against the porch railing. "I fell in love with this land the first time I saw it. Everyone said I was crazy to try ranching in the Arizona territory, that the Apache troubles were not worth the risk, that the land was too rough. But I could see what it could become, what it could be with the right work and patience. Do you ever regret it, leaving wherever you came from, choosing this hard life?" "Never. I came from a farm in Missouri, good land, but crowded with too many people trying to make a living from not enough space. My family was poor, always would be poor, and I wanted something different. I wanted to build something that was mine, something I could be proud of." He turned to look at her directly. "What about you? Any regrets about coming west?" Katherine considered the question seriously. "I regret that Thomas died. That seems like a terrible waste, but I do not regret leaving Boston. I felt like I was slowly suffocating there, like every day was just another step toward disappearing completely. At least here, I feel like I matter, like the work I do makes a real difference." "It does," Vincent said quietly, "more than you probably realize. Cookie and Jack are happier. The place feels like a real home instead of just a work camp. And I find myself looking forward to coming inside at the end of the day, instead of dreading another evening alone with my own thoughts." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching night settle over the land. Katherine was acutely aware of Vincent's presence beside her, the solid reality of him, the way he moved with such confidence and purpose. She found herself noticing small things about him. The laugh lines around his eyes, the careful way he treated his horses, the gentleness in his hands when he examined an injured calf. He was nothing like the men she had known in Boston, and she was not entirely sure what to make of the feelings he stirred in her. "Katherine," Vincent said eventually, his voice low, "I want to be honest with you about something. When I hired you, I meant what I said about there being no pressure, about it just being employment if that was what you wanted. But I would be lying if I said I had not started hoping for more. You are everything I was looking for in a wife. Strong, faithful, practical, kind. You have made this place feel like home in just a few weeks, but I do not want to push you into anything. You have been through a lot of changes, and you deserve time to figure out what you want." Catherine's heart was beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. "I do not know what to say. I came here expecting to marry a stranger sight unseen, someone I only knew through letters. You have been kinder to me than I had any right to expect, and I will admit, I have been thinking about what it might be like if this became something more than just employment. But Vincent, I need to be honest too. I do not know if what I am feeling is real affection or just gratitude and relief. I do not want to confuse the two." "That is fair," Vincent said. "How about this? You keep doing what you are doing, I will keep doing what I am doing, and we will just see what happens naturally. No pressure, no expectations. If feelings develop, they develop. If not, you still have a job here for as long as you want it. Deal?" "Deal," Katherine said, and they shook hands like business partners, both of them trying not to smile at the formality of it. But something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of possibility that colored every interaction after that. Katherine found herself taking extra care with her appearance, putting on one of the new dresses Vincent had bought her, learning to braid her dark hair in a more practical style that still looked pretty. Vincent started coming in earlier from his work, taking time to wash up and change his shirt before supper, sitting at the table asking her about her day with genuine interest in every detail. Cookie and Jack noticed, of course. "Boss is sweet on you, miss," Cookie told her one morning while they were working together in the garden she had started. "I have known him 3 years, and I have never seen him smile so much as he has this past month." "I am fond of him too," Katherine admitted, "but I want to be certain. I do not want to make another impulsive decision just because it seems convenient." "Nothing impulsive about taking your time," Cookie agreed. "Vincent is a good man, one of the best I have known. He will wait for you, give you whatever time you need. But between you and me, I think you two are perfect for each other. Just took a stagecoach and some bad luck to get you in the same place at the same time." Katherine thought about that conversation as September turned to October and the brutal summer heat gave way to cooler temperatures. She and Vincent continued their evening talks on the porch, sharing more of their histories, their dreams, their fears. She learned that he was 26, that he had once been engaged to a girl back in Missouri who had decided she could not handle frontier life, and married his cousin instead, that his greatest fear was building all this only to end up alone. "I do not think you need to worry about that," Katherine said softly one evening when he confessed this fear. "I think you have a gift for bringing people together, for making them feel valued and safe. Look at Cookie and Jack. They could work anywhere, but they stay here because you have created something worth being part of." "What about you?" Vincent asked. "Are you staying because of what I have created, or because you do not have anywhere else to go?" It was a fair question, one Katherine had asked herself repeatedly. She looked out at the ranch, at the house that now gleamed with her care, at the garden she had planted that was producing fall vegetables, at the mended fences and organized barn. More than that, she looked at the life she had built here in just 2 months, the sense of purpose and belonging she had found. "At first, I was staying because I had no choice," she said honestly. "But that has not been true for weeks now. Mrs. Patterson mentioned in her last letter that the new school teacher did not work out and the position is available if I want it. I would have my own small house, a steady salary, respectability. It would be a good life." Vincent's face went carefully neutral. "Are you thinking of taking it?" "No," Katherine said, and watched relief flood his expression. "I am staying because I want to, because this feels like home in a way Boston never did, because working beside you feels right. because when I think about my future now, I see it here with you." Vincent reached for her hand, his calloused fingers gentle as they intertwined with hers. "Katherine, I am in love with you. I think I have been since you were sitting in the dust outside the general store, clutching that Bible like it was the only solid thing left in the world. I have tried to be patient, to give you space, but I cannot keep pretending this is just about employment or convenience. I want to marry you, build a real life together, have children if God blesses us with them. But only if that is what you want too." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but they were good tears, happy tears. "I love you too. It scared me at first, feeling this much for someone I had known such a short time, but every day just makes me more certain. Yes, Vincent. Yes, I will marry you." He kissed her then, soft and careful and full of promise, and Katherine felt like everything in her life had finally clicked into place. This was what she had been searching for without knowing it. This man who saw her clearly and valued her completely. This life that challenged and fulfilled her in equal measure. They were married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony at the Apache Junction church, with Cookie and Jack as witnesses and Mrs. Patterson, and half the town in attendance. Katherine wore a simple white dress she had sewn herself, and Vincent wore his best suit, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Katherine felt the rightness of it down to her bones. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, both of them nervous and eager in equal measure. Vincent was patient and gentle, and Katherine was grateful for his consideration, for the way he made sure she felt safe and cherished. They fell asleep tangled together in the big bed that was now theirs to share, and Katherine woke in the middle of the night to find Vincent watching her with such love in his eyes that it took her breath away. "What are you thinking?" she whispered. "That I am the luckiest man alive," Vincent said. "That you arrived with nothing but a Bible, and I told myself that was the best dowry I could ask for because it meant you had faith and strength. But Katherine, you brought so much more than that. You brought hope and joy and purpose. You made this house a home. You made me believe that I could have the life I had always dreamed of. We will build it together," Katherine promised. "Whatever comes, we will face it together." The first year of their marriage was one of hard work and deep happiness. They fell into an easy partnership, each understanding their role while respecting the other's contributions. Katherine managed the household with the same competence she brought to everything, expanding the garden, keeping chickens for eggs, learning to preserve food for the winter months. She continued to cook for Cookie and Jack, but now she also shared private meals with Vincent, intimate suppers where they talked and laughed and planned their future. Vincent worked the ranch with renewed energy, motivated by having someone to build for, someone who shared his vision. He expanded the herd, improved the grazing lands, built a better barn. He came home each evening to his wife's smile and her excellent cooking, to a clean house and mended clothes, to someone who listened to his concerns and offered thoughtful advice. But more than the practical partnership, there was love. Vincent cherished Katherine in 100 small ways, bringing her wildflowers from his rides, helping her with heavy chores, reading aloud to her from the newspaper he picked up in town. Katherine showed her love through the care she took with everything. The way she learned exactly how Vincent liked his coffee, the small treats she made for his birthday, the tender way she tended his cuts and bruises after rough days. They made love frequently, learning each other's bodies and desires, discovering that passion was even better when it was paired with genuine affection and respect. Katherine lost the last of her shyness, becoming bolder in expressing what she wanted, and Vincent loved that she felt safe enough with him to be completely herself. By spring, Katherine was pregnant. She told Vincent one evening after supper, too excited to wait for a more formal announcement. He lifted her off her feet and spun her around, whooping with joy, then immediately set her down gently and asked if she was feeling all right, if she needed anything, if he should ride for the doctor. "I am perfectly fine," Katherine assured him, laughing at his concern. "Women have been having babies for thousands of years. I am healthy and strong, and we have months to prepare." Those months passed in a blur of preparations. Vincent built a cradle from smooth pine wood, sanding it until there was not a single rough edge. Katherine sewed tiny gowns and blankets, amazed at how much love she could feel for someone she had not yet met. Cookie and Jack treated her like she was made of glass, trying to take over all her chores until she threatened to stop cooking for them if they did not let her work. "I am pregnant, not dying," she told them firmly. "I will ask for help when I need it." The baby came on a November evening, arriving with surprising speed for a first child. The doctor barely made it in time, but Vincent was there the whole time, holding Katherine's hand, whispering encouragement, refusing to leave her side no matter how much the doctor protested that birth was no place for a husband. When the baby finally emerged, wailing and red-faced and perfect, Katherine and Vincent both wept with joy. A son, healthy and strong with a full head of dark hair and his father's nose. "What should we name him?" Vincent asked, touching the baby's impossibly tiny hand with one calloused finger. Katherine thought of her journey west, of the faith that had sustained her through uncertainty and fear, of the Bible that had been her most valuable possession. "Samuel," she said. "It means God has heard, because God heard my prayers, even when I thought I was completely lost. He brought me to you, gave us this life, blessed us with this perfect child. Samuel." "Samuel Vale," Vincent said, testing the name. "I like it. Welcome to the world, son." The early days of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful. Samuel was a good baby, healthy and generally content, but the sleepless nights took their toll on both Katherine and Vincent. They took turns walking the floor with him when he fussed, learning to function on scattered fragments of sleep, discovering that their love could expand to encompass this tiny new person without diminishing what they felt for each other. Cookie and Jack doted on Samuel shamelessly, competing to hold him, making ridiculous faces to earn his smiles. The ranch felt complete now, a true home with multiple generations working and living together. As Samuel grew from infant to toddler, Katherine and Vincent fell into new rhythms. Katherine still managed the household, but now included teaching Samuel his first words, showing him the animals, reading to him from the Bible she had carried across the country. Vincent took his son out on gentle rides, showing him the land that would one day be his inheritance, teaching him to respect the animals and the harsh beauty of the desert. They made love less frequently now, both too tired most nights, but when they did come together, it was with even deeper intimacy, knowing each other so well that few words were needed. Vincent would pull Katherine close on quiet evenings and tell her she was even more beautiful now than the day he first saw her, and Katherine would run her fingers through his hair and marvel at how lucky she was to have found him. 2 years after Samuel was born, Katherine became pregnant again. This time she knew what to expect, was less anxious about the changes in her body, and more focused on preparing Samuel for his new role as big brother. The pregnancy was easier than the first, her body already knowing what to do, and she felt strong and healthy right up until the birthing pains began. The second baby was a girl, born on a spring morning with the desert wildflowers in full bloom. She came into the world more quietly than her brother, looking around with wide eyes like she was taking careful stock of her new surroundings before deciding whether to approve. "She looks like you," Vincent said, studying his daughter's face. Same serious expression you get when you are thinking hard about something. Katherine laughed, exhausted but happy. Poor child. What should we name her? They had discussed names for months without reaching agreement, but looking at their daughter now, Katherine suddenly knew. Grace. For my middle name, and because that is what your love has been for me, Vincent. Pure grace, unearned and freely given. Grace Vale, Vincent said softly. Perfect. With 2 children under 5, life at the ranch became even busier. Katherine's days were full from dawn to late evening, caring for the children, managing the household, somehow still finding time to cook proper meals and keep everything running smoothly. Vincent helped whenever he could, changing diapers without complaint, rocking babies to sleep, giving Katherine breaks to rest or simply sit quietly with a cup of tea. I do not know how you do it all, he told her one evening after a particularly chaotic day when Samuel had gotten into the chicken coop and Grace had developed a mild fever. You never complain, never lose your patience. You are the strongest person I know. I complain plenty when you are not around, Katherine said wryly. But Vincent, I love this life. Even the hard days, even when I am so tired I can barely think straight. I look around at what we have built, at these beautiful children, at this home we have made together, and I cannot believe this is my life. That girl sitting in the dust in Apache Junction clutching her Bible could never have imagined being this happy. That Bible, Vincent said thoughtfully. You still read from it every night. Do you remember what I said when you first arrived about it being the best dowry? You said it showed I had faith and strength. I was right, but I did not know the half of it. That Bible represented everything you were and everything you would bring to this marriage. Faith to take enormous risks, strength to keep going when things looked impossible, wisdom to build something lasting. You brought that Bible west, but you also brought yourself, and that was the real gift. Katherine's eyes filled with tears, as they often did these days when Vincent said something particularly touching. I love you so much. Sometimes I still cannot believe you stopped to help a desperate stranger that day. What made you do it? Vincent was quiet for a moment, thinking back to that sweltering August afternoon 4 years ago. Honestly, I saw something in you even in that first moment. Determination, maybe, or just pure stubborn refusal to give up. You were sitting there in the worst moment of your life, and you still had not quit. I admired that. And then when we talked, and you told me about coming all this way on faith and hope, about losing everything but still pushing forward, I thought maybe God had put you in my path for a reason. Do you really think that God planned all of this? I do not know how it all works, Vincent admitted, but I know that Thomas Wainwright dying was a tragedy. And I know that you showing up in Apache Junction on that exact day, when I happened to be in town at that exact time, feels like more than just coincidence. Maybe it was just luck, or maybe it was something more. Either way, I am grateful for it every single day. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching their children sleep, and Katherine thought about the strange path that had brought her here. The loss of her parents, the years of hard work in Boston, the desperate gamble of answering that advertisement, the crushing disappointment of learning her intended husband had died. Every step had seemed random at the time, but looking back, it felt like a path leading exactly where she was meant to be. The years rolled on, bringing changes and challenges and joys. The ranch prospered, allowing Vincent to hire additional hands and expand operations. Samuel grew tall and strong, learning to ride before he could properly walk, showing his father's natural way with animals. Grace was quieter but equally determined, insisting on learning to read by age 4, following Katherine everywhere, absorbing her mother's skills and wisdom. Cookie retired when he turned 70, moving into a small house Vincent built for him near the main house, spending his days teaching the children to fish and telling them stories about the old days. Jack married a widow from town and brought her to live in the cabin that had once housed the ranch hands, and she became Catherine's good friend, someone to talk to during long afternoons while their children played together. Katherine and Vincent's marriage deepened and mellowed, the passionate urgency of early love transforming into something even richer: partnership, friendship, abiding affection, and still, beneath it all, desire that flared at unexpected moments. A shared glance across a crowded church social. Vincent's hand at the small of Catherine's back as they danced at the 4th of July celebration. Katherine laughing at one of Vincent's stories and him stopping mid-sentence to kiss her, unable to help himself. "You still take my breath away," he told her on their 10th anniversary, pulling her close in the privacy of their bedroom. "More now than ever, if that is possible." Katherine looked at herself in the mirror, seeing the changes that 10 years and 3 children had brought. Lines at the corners of her eyes, hands rough from work, her figure fuller than it had been at 22. But she also saw contentment, the peace that came from being exactly where she was meant to be. "I feel the same about you," she said honestly, "though you have gone quite gray at the temples." "Distinguished," Vincent corrected with a grin. "I am distinguished now." "Very distinguished," Katherine agreed and pulled him down to the bed, their laughter turning to sighs of pleasure as they celebrated a decade of marriage in the most intimate way possible. Their third child arrived when Katherine was 34 and Vincent was 38, a surprise pregnancy that neither of them had anticipated but both welcomed with joy. Another boy, born robust and hollering, determined to make his presence known from the very beginning. They named him Thomas, for the man whose death had inadvertently brought them together, honoring his memory by giving his name to this new life. Samuel was 12 by then, already helping his father with real ranch work, learning the business that would one day be his. Grace was 10, dividing her time between helping Katherine and pursuing her passionate interest in learning everything about the plants and animals of the desert. They both adored their baby brother, competing to help care for him, showing him off to everyone who visited the ranch. Katherine had never been happier. There were still hard days, still moments of exhaustion and frustration, but they were nothing compared to the deep satisfaction of the life she had built. She had a husband who loved her deeply, children who were healthy and thriving, a home that was beautiful and comfortable, friends who valued her, and a faith that had been tested and proven true. One evening when Thomas was about 6 months old, Katherine found herself alone on the porch, enjoying a rare moment of quiet while Vincent bathed the baby and the older children were occupied with homework. She had brought her mother's Bible out with her, as she often did, and she opened it to read the familiar verses that had sustained her through so many changes. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." She thought about that terrified girl who had stepped off the stagecoach 13 years ago, about how lost she had felt, how certain that she had made a terrible mistake. If someone had told her then what her life would become, she would not have believed it. The happiness seemed too perfect, too complete to be real, but it was real. The evidence was all around her. The ranch that hummed with productive activity, the children's laughter echoing from inside the house, the weight of the wedding ring on her finger. Most of all, the steady presence of Vincent, her partner in everything, the man who had looked at a desperate stranger and seen possibility. "What are you thinking about so seriously?" Vincent asked, joining her on the porch with Thomas in his arms, the baby clean and sweet-smelling, already drowsy. "About paths and providence," Katherine said. "About how I arrived here with nothing but a Bible, and you told me it was the best dowry you could ask for. Do you remember?" "Of course I remember. I meant it too. That Bible told me everything I needed to know about who you were and what you valued. It was worth more than money or fine clothes or any traditional dowry." Katherine smiled. "That Bible is falling apart now. The binding is cracked, pages are loose. Some of the writing has faded so much I can barely read it. But you still read it every night." "Every single night, just like my mother did. I have been thinking maybe it is time to get a new one, though. Something I could pass down to Grace or Samuel, something that would last another generation." "Maybe," Vincent said. "Or maybe that old Bible is perfect exactly as it is, wear and all. It traveled across the country with you, sustained you through hard times, was there when we met and when we married and when each of our children were born. Those worn pages tell a story, Katherine. Our story." He shifted Thomas to one arm and pulled Katherine close with the other, and they stood together watching the sun set over the desert they both loved, over the life they had built together through faith and hard work and enduring love. The years continued to pass, as years do, bringing both joys and sorrows. Cookie died peacefully in his sleep at 78, and they buried him on a hillside overlooking the ranch, marking his grave with a simple stone. Jack's wife passed from pneumonia one hard winter, leaving Jack heartbroken but determined to keep going for the sake of his children. Katherine's sister visited once from Philadelphia, bringing her own family to meet the Western relatives she had only known through letters. She was shocked by the rough conditions compared to Eastern cities, but she could not deny the happiness evident in every aspect of Katherine's life. "You were right to come here," she told Katherine before leaving. "I did not understand it then, but I see it now. You have something real here, something important." Vincent taught Samuel the full operations of the ranch, preparing him to eventually take over, and Sam proved to be a natural rancher with his father's good judgment and his mother's careful planning. Grace surprised everyone by declaring at 16 that she wanted to become a doctor. Having spent years learning about healing from books Katherine ordered from back east. It was an unusual ambition for a woman, but Katherine and Vincent supported her completely, saving money to send her to medical school in California. Thomas grew into a wild, joyful child who reminded Katherine of what Vincent must have been like at that age, always pushing boundaries, always seeking adventure, but fundamentally good-hearted and kind. He was especially close to his mother, often sitting with her while she cooked or sewed, asking endless questions about her life before the ranch, about the journey west, about the Bible she still read from every night. "Tell me again about the day you arrived in Apache Junction," Thomas would say, never tiring of the story. And Katherine would tell him about the stagecoach, and the dust, and the crushing disappointment of learning Thomas Wainwright had died, about sitting on her carpetbag with nothing but a Bible and no idea what to do next, about a tall cowboy who stopped to offer water and ended up offering her a whole new life. "What would have happened if Papa had not stopped to help you that day?" Thomas asked once. "I do not know," Katherine admitted. "I like to think I would have figured something out eventually. I was not the giving up type, even then. But it would have been much harder, and I might never have found this happiness. Your father gave me a gift that day, and I have tried to spend every day since being worthy of it." "I think you definitely are," Thomas said seriously, in the frank way of children who see the truth clearly. "You are the best mother anyone could have. And Papa says you are the best wife, too." Katherine laughed and hugged him close, breathing in the scent of sun and dust and little boy, thanking God silently for this child, for all her children, for the incredible life she had somehow stumbled into. Vincent found them like that and joined the embrace, wrapping his arms around both of them. "What is this? A family hug without me? I am offended." "We were talking about you," Thomas informed him, "about how you rescued Mama when she arrived with nothing but her Bible." "Rescued is a strong word," Vincent said, but he was smiling. "I would say we rescued each other. I was heading toward a lonely life, turning into one of those bitter old bachelor ranchers. Your mother saved me from that." "You saved each other," Thomas declared with the certainty of youth. "That is how the best stories work." Katherine met Vincent's eyes over their son's head, and the look that passed between them contained everything: memory and gratitude, passion and partnership, the deep comfort of being truly known by another person. They had built something remarkable together, something that would outlast them in their children and their children's children. Samuel married at 25, bringing home a clever young woman from town who fit into the ranch life as naturally as if she had been born to it. Within 2 years, Katherine was a grandmother, delighting in the baby girl who carried her name as a middle name. Grace went off to medical school, facing prejudice and hardship with the same determination Katherine had always shown, eventually graduating and returning to Apache Junction to become the town's first female doctor. Thomas, Wild Thomas, settled down at 21 when he fell hard for a rancher's daughter from a neighboring property. Their wedding was the biggest celebration the area had seen in years, with people coming from 3 counties to witness the joy and eat the incredible food Katherine and her daughters-in-law prepared. Through it all, Katherine and Vincent remained the center of the family, the foundation everyone else built upon. They were in their 50s now, slowing down a bit but still vital, still engaged with the ranch and their expanding family. Vincent's hair had gone completely silver, and Katherine had laugh lines etched deep around her eyes, but they still reached for each other in the night, still talked for hours on the porch after everyone else had gone to bed. "Do you ever think about what your life might have been if you had stayed in Boston?" Vincent asked one evening. "Sometimes," Katherine admitted. "I would probably still be working in my aunt's shop, growing old and invisible, saving pennies toward a future that never quite arrived. Or maybe I would have married someone there, some clerk or shopkeeper who needed a sensible wife. It would have been fine, I suppose, respectable, safe. But not this." "Not this," Katherine agreed. "Not you, not our children, not this incredible life we have built together." Vincent, answering that advertisement was the most reckless, impulsive, terrifying thing I had ever done. And it was the best decision I ever made, even though it did not work out the way I planned. Especially because it did not work out the way I planned. "I was so nervous the day I offered you that job," Vincent confessed. "I kept thinking you would say no, that you would be horrified by the suggestion, that I had completely misread the situation. But something told me to take the chance, to offer you an option when you had none." "What would you have done if I had said no?" Vincent was quiet for a moment. "I do not know. Helped you figure out something else, I suppose. Given you money for a ticket home, though you would not have accepted it. The strange thing is, Katherine, I knew even then that you were important. Not just someone in need of help, but someone who could change my life. I felt it the moment I saw you, even though that sounds ridiculous." "It does not sound ridiculous at all," Katherine said softly. "I felt it too, though I did not understand it at the time. There was something about you, about the way you looked at me, that made me feel safe in a moment when I had every reason to be terrified. I trusted you instantly, which should have been foolish but turned out to be the smartest thing I ever did." They sat together watching the stars emerge, the same stars they had watched on Katherine's first night at the ranch over 30 years ago. The ranch around them hummed with life now. Grandchildren playing, Cookie's cabin occupied by one of the senior ranch hands and his family, Jack's son working alongside Samuel to keep the operation running smoothly. Grace's medical practice in town serving the community. Thomas and his wife building their own house on the far end of the property. "We have built something good here," Vincent said. "Something that will last." "We have," Katherine agreed. And it all started with a dusty street, a worn Bible, and a cowboy who was kind to a stranger. On their 35th wedding anniversary, the whole extended family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. There were nearly 40 people now, counting children and grandchildren, spouses and close friends who had become like family. They roasted several steers, made dozens of pies, set up long tables in the yard, and spent the day eating and laughing and telling stories. "Tell us how you met," the grandchildren demanded, as they always did, never tiring of the story even though they had heard it dozens of times. So Katherine told them about Boston and the advertisement, about the journey west, and the crushing disappointment of learning her intended husband had died. She told them about sitting in the dust with nothing but her mother's Bible, about a tall cowboy who offered water and ended up offering so much more. And grandfather said that the Bible was the best dowry he could ask for. The oldest grandchild chimed in, knowing the story by heart. "That is right," Vincent confirmed. "I told your grandmother that her Bible showed me she had faith and strength, and that was worth more than gold. And I was right. That faith and strength built all of this." He gestured at the ranch, at the family gathered around them. "Every good thing in my life started the day your grandmother arrived with nothing but a Bible and the courage to keep going when everything seemed lost." "Do you still have it?" one of the younger grandchildren asked. "The Bible," Katherine nodded. "I do. It is very old and worn now, but I read from it every night, just like my mother did. Would you like to see it?" She went inside and returned with the ancient Bible, its leather cover cracked and soft with age, pages loose and yellowed, the ink faded in places. She opened it carefully, showing them the pressed flowers, the handwritten notes in the margins, the verses underlined by her mother's hand so many years ago. "This Bible traveled from Boston to the Arizona Territory in 1883, she told the children. "It survived everything with me, and it reminds me that faith means trusting even when you cannot see the path forward. When I got off that stagecoach with nothing else, I at least had this, and I had the strength to keep believing that God had a plan for me. And He did, though it was nothing like what I expected." Grace, now 45 and distinguished in her medical practice, spoke up. "Mother, you should write down your story, not just the romantic parts, but all of it. What it was really like coming west, building a life here, raising children in such a remote place. It is important history, and it should not be lost." "Your mother is right," Vincent said. "You lived through the last days of the true frontier, Katherine. Things are different now, easier in many ways. The Apache troubles are long settled, the railroad reaches everywhere, towns have schools and hospitals and all the modern conveniences. But when we started, it was still wild country, still dangerous and uncertain. That story should be preserved." So Katherine began writing, spending her mornings filling page after page with careful handwriting, recording not just the story of her arrival and marriage, but everything that had come after. The challenges of frontier life, the births of her children, the slow transformation of Apache Junction from a rough mining town to a proper community, the ways life had changed over more than 3 decades. She wrote about the good times and the hard times, the moments of joy and the sorrows. She wrote about loving Vincent through 35 years of marriage, about watching her children grow and create their own families, about the deep satisfaction of building something lasting. And she wrote about faith, about how the Bible that had seemed like cold comfort on that dusty street had actually been exactly what she needed, a reminder that she was never truly alone, never without hope. Vincent read what she wrote each evening, occasionally adding his own memories and perspectives. Together, they created a record of their life, a testimony to what faith and hard work and love could build even in the harshest circumstances. When Katherine turned 60, the whole family gathered again, and Grace presented her with a special gift. A new Bible, beautiful and sturdy, with Katherine and Vincent's names embossed in gold on the cover. Inside the front cover, Grace had written, "To honor the faith that brought our family together and the love that has sustained us, may this Bible serve the next generation as faithfully as your mother's Bible served you." Katherine wept as she held the new Bible, understanding what her daughter was saying. The old Bible had served its purpose, had guided her through the hardest years, had been the companion she needed. But it was time to pass on something new, something that could last another lifetime, while still honoring what had come before. That night, she read from the old Bible one last time, the familiar verses about trusting God and acknowledging Him in all your ways. Then she carefully wrapped it in soft cloth and placed it in a special box Vincent had made, preserving it as the precious artifact it had become. The next night, she read from the new Bible, and it felt right, like closing one chapter and opening another while remaining part of the same continuous story. Vincent and Katherine lived to see all their children married and established, to hold a dozen grandchildren and several great-grandchildren. The ranch prospered under Samuel's management, while Grace's medical practice saved countless lives, and Thomas's expansion into horse breeding brought recognition from across the territory. On their 50th wedding anniversary, now in their 70s, Katherine and Vincent sat on the porch of the house they had shared for half a century. Their bodies were slower now, marked by age and hard work, but their love had only deepened with time, mellowed into something rich and comfortable and utterly reliable. 50 years, Vincent said wonderingly. Do you know how many times I have thanked God for bringing you to Apache Junction that day? Probably about as many times as I have thanked Him for sending you to offer me water, Katherine replied. Vincent, I know we have said this to each other 1,000 times, but I want to say it again. You gave me everything when I had nothing. You saw value in me when I felt worthless. You built this beautiful life with me, raised these wonderful children with me, loved me every single day for 50 years. I could not have asked for a better husband, a better partner, a better friend. Katherine Grace Vale, Vincent said, taking her weathered hand in his equally weathered one. You are the answer to every prayer I ever prayed, even the ones I did not know to pray. You took my rough bachelor ranch and turned it into a real home. You gave me children and grandchildren, filled my life with love and purpose and joy. That day I saw you in the dust. I thought I was just helping someone in need. I had no idea I was meeting my future, meeting the woman who would make every dream I ever had come true. They kissed, soft and sweet, and then sat together watching the sun set over the land they had worked and loved for 50 years. Around them, the ranch hummed with the evening activities of their extended family, multiple generations living and working together, building on the foundation Katherine and Vincent had laid so long ago. Katherine thought about that terrified young woman who had stepped off the stagecoach in 1883, about how lost and frightened she had been. If she could speak to her younger self, what would she say? Perhaps that the hardest moments often precede the greatest blessings. That faith is not about knowing what will happen, but trusting that you will have what you need when you need it. That arriving with nothing but a Bible was actually arriving with everything essential: faith, hope, and the strength to keep believing even when the path forward was unclear. She pulled out the old Bible, still her most precious possession even though she read from the new one now. The leather was impossibly soft, worn smooth by decades of handling. Inside, the pages were brittle and yellowed, the ink faded to ghostly traces in places. But she could still read her mother's favorite verse, still see the flowers she had pressed between the pages, still feel the presence of everyone who had loved this book before her. "Best dowry I could ask for," Vincent said softly, seeing what she held. "And I meant it." "But Katherine, the real gift was not the Bible. It was you, with your courage and faith and stubborn determination never to give up. The Bible just showed me who you were. You are the one who made everything possible." "We made it possible," Katherine corrected gently. "Together." "That is what marriage is, Vincent. Not one person saving another, but two people choosing each other every day, building something neither could build alone. I brought faith and determination. You brought vision and kindness, and together we created all of this." She gestured at the ranch, at the family gathering for the evening meal, at the life they had built over 50 remarkable years. It was not perfect, had never been perfect, but it was real and good and filled with love. It was everything she had dreamed of, and so much more than she had dared to hope for on that desperate August day, when she had arrived in Apache Junction with nothing but a Bible and a heart full of prayers. Vincent and Katherine lived several more years, growing older together with grace and dignity. They remained sharp-minded and engaged with their family, offering wisdom and guidance when asked, but respecting that the younger generations needed to make their own way. They took enormous pride in what their children had accomplished, in the way the ranch had evolved while maintaining its essential character, in the strong marriages and happy families their grandchildren were building. When Vincent died peacefully in his sleep at 78, Katherine grieved deeply, but without bitterness. They had been given more time together than many couples ever received, more happiness than either had thought possible. She was sad, terribly sad, but she was also grateful for every moment they had shared, every challenge they had overcome together, every quiet evening spent talking on the porch about everything and nothing. She remained at the ranch, living with Samuel and his family, still contributing where she could, still the matriarch everyone turned to for advice and comfort. She read from her Bible every night, both the old one and the new, finding comfort in the familiar verses and in the memories they evoked of faith sustained through every circumstance. 3 years after Vincent's death, Katherine gathered her children and grandchildren around her. She was 80 now, feeling the weight of her years, sensing that her time was drawing to a close. But she was not afraid. She had lived a full life, a good life, and she was ready to rest. "I want to tell you one last time about the day I arrived in Apache Junction," she said, her voice still strong despite her age. "About meeting your grandfather, about the Bible he said was the best dowry he could ask for, because I want you to understand what that really meant." The family gathered close, multiple generations listening to the story they had heard countless times but never tired of hearing. "I arrived with nothing but faith," Katherine said. "I had lost everything else. But faith was enough, because it gave me the strength to keep going when giving up would have been easier. Faith brought me west. Faith helped me trust your grandfather when he offered me hope. Faith sustained us through hard years and blessed years alike." The Bible was just a symbol of that faith, a reminder that I was never alone even when I felt most lost. She looked around at her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, at the strong, beautiful family that had come from that desperate moment in the dust. Your grandfather and I built all of this on faith and love and hard work. We trusted God, we trusted each other, and we never stopped believing that we could create something worthwhile. And look what came from that faith. All of you, this ranch, this family that will continue long after I am gone." Grace leaned forward. "Mother, that faith you are talking about, that strength to keep going, you gave that to all of us. We see it in how you lived, how you loved, how you faced every challenge. You were not just the woman who arrived with a Bible. You became the woman who built a dynasty of faith and love." Katherine smiled, her eyes bright with tears. "Then I have done what I hoped to do. I have passed on what my mother gave me, faith that sustains through hard times, love that builds rather than destroys, strength to face whatever comes. Take care of each other, love each other well, and never lose faith even when the path forward is unclear. That is how you honor your grandfather and me." A few months later, Katherine died quietly in her sleep, her mother's old Bible resting on the bedside table where it had sat for 67 years. The whole community came to her funeral, remembering the young woman who had arrived with nothing and built so much, honoring the matriarch who had shaped Apache Junction through her faith and her love and her quiet, steady presence. They buried her beside Vincent on the hillside overlooking the ranch, near Cookie and several other members of the extended family. The headstone was simple but beautiful. Katherine Grace Vale, 1861–1946, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. Arrived with faith, built with love. In the years that followed, the ranch continued to thrive under the management of Katherine and Vincent's descendants. The old Bible was preserved as a family treasure, carefully stored but occasionally brought out for special occasions, a reminder of where it all began. The new Bible Grace had given Katherine was used for family weddings and baptisms, recording each new generation in the pages set aside for that purpose. Samuel's children and grandchildren told the story of Katherine's arrival to their own children, keeping alive the memory of the young woman who had stepped off a stagecoach with nothing but a Bible and the courage to keep going. They told about Vincent's kindness in offering her hope when she had none, about his declaration that her Bible was the best dowry he could ask for, because it showed him who she truly was. And they told about the love that had grown from that unlikely meeting, the partnership that had built something lasting, the faith that had sustained them through everything. It became the family's founding story, the touchstone they returned to whenever times got hard, a reminder that faith and love and determination could overcome any obstacle. The ranch itself became a landmark in Arizona, one of the oldest continuously operating family ranches in the state. When historians came to document its history, they always lingered over the story of Katherine's arrival, recognizing it as emblematic of the courage and faith that had built the American West. Not the courage of gunslingers and outlaws, but the quieter courage of ordinary people who kept going despite enormous odds, who built homes and families and communities in harsh and unforgiving land. Grace, who lived to 93, was often asked about her mother. She always said the same thing. "My mother taught me that arriving with nothing is not the same as being nothing. She had faith, strength, and love, and those things built everything." The Bible she carried was precious, but it was precious because of what it represented, not because of its material value. My father understood that from the very beginning. That is why their love lasted, why what they built endured. They saw the real value in each other, the essential worth that had nothing to do with money or possessions. The story spread beyond the family, becoming part of the local folklore, eventually finding its way into books about the Arizona Territory and the brave women who had helped settle it. Katherine's memoir, which she had written in her 60s, and which Grace eventually had published, became required reading in schools throughout Arizona. Students learned about the realities of frontier life through her honest, unsentimental prose, and they learned about faith and perseverance through her example. But perhaps the most important legacy was the one within the family itself. Each generation learned from the one before that love meant partnership, that faith meant trusting even in uncertainty, that building something lasting required patience and determination, and the willingness to keep going even when the path was difficult. They learned to value character over possessions, faith over fear, love over convenience. And they learned that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as disasters, that arriving with nothing but faith can actually mean arriving with everything essential, that the moments when we feel most lost are often the moments just before we are found. The old Bible, carefully preserved in its special box, remained the family's most precious heirloom, more valuable than the land or the cattle or any amount of money. Because it represented the faith that had started everything, the courage that had built a dynasty, the love that had created something so strong it could weather generations. And in Apache Junction, Arizona, whenever someone mentioned the Vale Ranch, old-timers would nod and say, "That is the place started by the bride who arrived with nothing but a Bible, and the cowboy who said it was the best dowry he could ask for." Love story for the ages, that one. They built something real, something that lasted. They had indeed. From one dusty afternoon in 1883, from a desperate woman and a kind cowboy, from a worn Bible and a leap of faith, had come a legacy of love that would endure for generations, a testament to the power of faith, the strength of partnership, and the enduring truth that sometimes the best things we can offer each other are not material possessions, but rather courage, kindness, and the willingness to build something beautiful together from absolutely nothing.